When the Wu-Tang Clan came out with "Cash rules everything around me" and "Dollar dollar bills, y'all," everyone stopped to think, is it really all about the money? But it's not bad to think about ways that you can earn a little extra cash, which is why we'll talk about how you can do that as a doctor in the NHS. If this is the first time you're checking out our channel, welcome. Basically what we do is we run a website that's totally free known as roadtok.com, and it will explain the ins and outs about everything related to the United Kingdom and what it takes for you to work as a doctor in the NHS. So if you've not already, please stalk us on all of our social media. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Hi guys, my name's Debreeze and I currently work as a doctor in the NHS, and let's first understand what a locum is. So you may or may not be familiar with this term locum, or in your country, or you may have heard it as something known as moonlighting, but basically if there's a gap, if they need someone to fill in a spot on a roster, be it in a day shift, evening, night shift, what have you, they need somebody to come in and be an extra person to work, and that is what a locum is. How can you find locum opportunities in your hospital? First of all, you need to see what is available. Are you also available in your department or in another department? And ideally, it should be in a department where you have some experience, because locums are not really individuals who are in a supported role. There may be, of course, people that you can speak to, maybe a registrar or higher, but effectively, if you're taking a locum post in that department, they expect you to understand how that department runs. So the first thing you need to do is see what days you're off, so you're not working, or if it's an evening shift, if you have time in the evenings, and you need to make sure that you're not overworking yourself. So if you check out a video that I've already done previously on what the working hours are in the NHS, you can have an understanding of what your roster may potentially look like and the availability that you would have without overdoing it, because you can't still break the work time directive. You have to maintain that, even if you are doing locum shifts. Now, once you found your availability, you need to see, is there an availability in your department? It could be all and well that you are free on Friday, but if there isn't an available locum shift on Friday for the department that you want to work in, you can't do that locum shift in your hospital. Now, you might be asking, well, okay, fine, I won't do it in my hospital, I'll go do it in another hospital. And you have every right to. You need to go through whatever the hospital's HR setup is for that locum agency that they hire, so that you would come in as an external locum. If you're a locum within your hospital, you're considered an internal locum, and everything's fine and dandy the minute you start working. You really don't have to worry about much. But as an external locum, you need to really make sure they have all of your information, payroll, etc., so that they know who you are. For an internal locum, the only limitations on the hours that you're working are based on basically that you're not overworking. You can otherwise, if it works, do as many locum shifts as possible. But if you're an external locum, you can't do more than an average of 20 hours a week. Bottom line, you need to figure out how your hospital books locums. For instance, our hospital has an app. We can see what locums are available in different departments and then book them that way. We also have the option, of course, to email the rota coordinators and say, actually, is there a locum here? Is there a locum there? Now, all of that aside, what about the locum rates? Why would anyone want to do a locum? I mean, you're working. I want to spend my days off. And yeah, completely valid. But a locum rate, of course, because you're somebody who's coming in when there's a pinch, you're going to be paid a little bit extra. We already have some videos where Ibrahim talks about a doctor's pay in the UK, as well as what an NHS doctor's payslip looks like, so you can understand effectively what your hourly rate is at the level that you're working at. But what about your locum rate? Now, your locum rate can have a lot of variations. You could find that you're getting a different locum rate at the same level versus your friend who's working at a different hospital at the same level. The things that can affect your locum rate first are the level that you're working at, so if it's in FY1, FY2, CT1, etc. 2, the hospital and city that you're working at, because that can vary as well. And then 3, their ultimate demand and need for having that doctor. And what I mean by that is escalated locum rates. So let's first take into consideration your experience and the level that you're working at. On average, if you ask around the UK, people will generally say locum rates for the bottom end start at about £20 an hour, and it can go up to about
£75 an hour. This can really vary. Of course, I'm not taking into account consultant locum rates because that has a whole nother thing. But for the junior doctor levels from like FY1 to higher specialty registrars, you can kind of give it a range of about £20 an hour to up to £75 an hour. But do not take this as a hard and fast rule for every hospital. Like I said, it can really, really vary. So if you're concerned about, well, how come somebody's making more than me in another hospital for their locum rate, it could also be that that's a bigger hospital. They have more responsibilities. So that's why there's a higher locum rate. If you're generally unsatisfied with a locum rate in your hospital, you don't have to do locums there. You can go do locums elsewhere, like we said before, but you should just know what your worth is and how much you're getting back. So now you're going to ask me, what about escalated rates? Or I've heard that sometimes if you say that you want this rate, they'll give you that rate. So what happens when there's an escalated rate situation is they have tried really hard to fill this locum, or all of a sudden at the very last minute somebody's become ill or is unable to take their shift, and it's a shift that they must fill for patient safety reasons and basically to keep the hospital running. So they can offer whatever your normal locum rate was at an escalated extra bit of an incentive that please, 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 can you come and take this shift? Yes, there are occasions where if they can't get anyone at all, people have been known to say, I know you're telling me that the escalated rate is, let's say £60 an hour, but I won't come in unless it's 75 because of whatever reasons. And that may or may not work for you. It may also backfire on you because they may not call you ever again if they're offering escalated rates, if you're being really adamant about it. But if you know your worth and you're like, do you know what, the amount of work that actually comes out of doing that shift, I wouldn't do it unless it's that much. That's completely within your rights for you to be like, actually, no, I'm not going to do it like this. So let's have a hypothetical situation. If we were to consider that on average, an SHO can expect a locum rate of £40 an hour, and in a month's time, as you guys know, you can have a lot of weekends off or your evenings off. If you decide to pick up 60 extra hours in that month as a locum, be it a night shift, a weekend, or a day shift for days that you're on annual leave, you could still do a locum, and you do 60 hours at a rate of £40 an hour, you are looking at £2,400 pre-tax. And guess what? That is in addition to the salary that you're already making as a doctor working your normal roster. So potentially, depending on, of course, the locum rate and how many hours you're putting in, you can match the salary that you're making or even make more than your basic salary. And that's fine. That's your money to put in your pocket, to put away and to use as you wish and as you want. Don't think that, of course, that you can do this every month because it would become very tiring considering the amount of hours you'll be putting in. And of course, don't try and overwork yourself in the process. But just recognize that a couple of extra shifts here or there can really add up at the end of the month to a good locum salary. Now you may be wondering, well, okay, I'm an international medical graduate on a visa. Why will they let me locum? Like in the United States, if you try and moonlight, there are a lot of restrictions and you need settled status and this and that. Why would they let me do it in the UK? The UK's a little bit more flexible about the whole thing. So if you're a doctor working on a work visa, guess what? Already all the stuff that we've mentioned, you can go ahead and do as an internal locum, so long as you're not overworking and working past the work time directive. You can work those hours, no problem. As an external locum, yeah, of course, you're limited to 20 hours a week, but really, I mean, you're probably only going to be putting away that much. Now, what about those of you who are like, no, forget this, man. You've just mentioned all this money. I just want to locum from the get-go. Why can't I locum from the start? Why do I have to take a substantive post? Well, there's several reasons. First of all, if you require a visa to work in the UK, so you're not on a dependent or a spouse visa or anything like that, or you don't have citizenship, you cannot get a work visa solely to just locum, because locuming is not an everyday job. It's when it's available, then you're working. So you can't get a visa on that. All right. Your options, if you're in that situation, if you just want to locum and do nothing else, is to wait until you get indefinite leave to remain, or an ILR status, which is what you get after being in the UK for 5 years on a work visa. Once you hit that 5-year mark, if you're like, do you know what, guys? I don't want to do the 9-to-5 grind. I just want to find a job any once in a while to be a locum and live my life. By all means, do it. Now, for those of you who have a little bit more of leeway, if you're on any sort of a dependent visa or a spouse visa, you can locum from day one without any problem. You don't have to wait for this ILR or anything like that. I want to, though, make one thing very clear. If you choose to locum as your first job in the NHS, as I said before, I'd really, really recommend at least getting some sort of shadowing or observership or attachmentee experience beforehand, because depending on your department, they may expect you to already know everything, the ins and outs and what goes where. Yeah, sure, the general stuff of, oh, where do I put this, where do I put that, that can vary from hospital to hospital. But if you don't have any NHS experience, stepping directly into a locum role may seem extremely daunting, because they do kind of expect you to know what you're doing. That's the kind of whole point of the locum, that somebody they can just leave to do the work and not have to worry too much, because that's why they're there, to fill that plug. One last thing, guys. Now, you might be like, all right, fine, I want to get ILR, or I'm on a dependent visa or what have you, and you're just like, and now I want to live the locum life, the flexibility that comes with that. And you can. If you have all the experience and stuff in there to be a locum SHO, you can work as a locum SHO through a locum agency, and they'd set those rates, because effectively you'd be working privately unless you're working within the hospital's bank. If you have experience to be a registrar, you can be a locum registrar, and of course that rate would be higher than what a locum SHO would get. And if you make, consultant level, guess what? You can be a locum consultant too, and it's the same thing. And of course, like I said before, the pay that you would get as a locum consultant would be more than what you get as a reg, which would be more than what you would get as an SHO. So don't think that there's some sort of power out there that's saying you have to get into a substantive permanent post, or there isn't any flexibility to what you want to do. If you want to be a locum for the rest of your medical career, you can. No one is stopping you. It's a matter of availability, like I said before. So there you have it, how you can make a little extra cash as a doctor in the NHS. And while I know you guys do love these awesome videos and things that we put out, if you feel like you need a little more personalized guidance, check out our guidance sessions. We've linked them in the description box below. But as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to our amazingly awesome newsletter, and we will see you next time. Bye.